Yo, what's going on? It's Duty Man, aka Duty the Real One, aka the Real 187. You understand what I'm saying? And we back at the sports order, you know what I'm saying? It's been a lot going on in sports and a lot going on, in the media with former athletes and current athletes alike, you know, stating they facts, opinions, thoughts, and feelings on all things sports. You understand what I'm saying? But, my favorite sport is basketball, as we know. And regardless of what sport that I'm talking about, even though in this case we talking strictly basketball and strictly about one topic, you know what I'm saying? So I want y'all to bear with me. It's cool, you know what I'm saying? Because I'm gonna just get straight into it, and basically this headline caught me out the blue. You understand what I'm saying? Like Kevin Garnett, made some headlines, you know, on my sports itinerary, my radar about 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 how unsure he is that the generation he played in could play in today's league, could play in today's NBA. He not sure on how, the stars from his era would fare or players from his era would fare in today's league, and you know and vice versa, so forth and so on in. But but so far I'm looking at it like it's a balanced perspective. But I'm gonna just get into a little bit of what he was talking about. The reporter asked him, you know, what's your current take on the current state of the NBA game? And his answer, quote unquote, verbatim is, "The game is at another level. I know you said that you made the team with Vancouver. But I want you to get on the court, sprint corner to corner, stop on a dime, and shoot a three. I want you to do 10 of those. Then I want you to focus on how tired you are, because these players do that for 48 minutes. I don't think guys from 20 years ago could play in this game. 20 years ago, guys used their hands to control players. Now you can't use your hands. That makes defense damn near impossible. Can you imagine not hand checking Michael Jordan? Nah. The fact that you can't touch players gives the offensive players so much flexibility. Defensive players have to take angles away and stuff like that. But if you have any creativity and ambition, you can be a great offensive player in this league. The fadeaways, one leg runners, the one leg balance shots, that's stuff that Dirk Nowitzki brought to our game. And now when I watch Joker play, it feels like he has taken that Dirkness and mixed it with his own talent. And Steph Curry revolutionized things with being able to shoot it from distance with such consistency. Klay Thompson, Dame Lillard, these guards changed the game. I don't know if the guards from 20, 30 years ago could play in this time right here. It's creative, it's competitive, it's saucy. You get dropped. A nigga will cross you over and break your ACL these days. The game is in a great place. So that was his answer to the current state of the NBA game from his point of view, and that's a solid point of view. You know what I'm saying? You understand what I'm saying? You know, and I was hoping he'd be a little bit more honest, but I get it, and I don't think it was him being politically correct neither. It's given a balanced take. It's given a unbiased balanced take on the league. Like, you understand what I'm saying? So, but I mean, Kevin didn't necessarily highlight, how would today's players fare in the NBA from 20, 30 years ago. So he didn't describe that, but, you know, and it's because it's a lot of people already harkening back on that. You can't harken back on what already happened. I mean, you can, but it's not going to make any sense to me. You know, like guys from this era couldn't compete in the 90s NBA. Well, you're not going to see the 90s NBA no more. You're not going to see the 80s NBA no more, the 70s NBA no more, and so on and so forth. Not even the 2010s. You hear me? So You're not gonna see none of that. The NBA game is what it is, whether we like it or not, or disagree with some things about the game or not. You know what I'm saying? It is what it is. I stand where I stand. You know what I mean? It don't make me wrong, but it does make me right. Shit. Fuck you think I talk like this just to be wrong? Fuck no. You understand what I'm saying? Can't nobody teach me shit about sports. Point blank. You hear me? But yeah, the idea is in this here, you know, dudes from and do I agree with do I agree with Kevin Garnett about guys from 20 years ago not being able to play in this league? He's right from a large part, but some guys from that era did flash, you know, did show flashes of, being able to play in this era, you know, had they gotten the opportunity to really express their game, you know, and it ain't even got. I'm so in tune with the game. I remember Jonathan Bender being built like a Kevin Durant, 6'11", rangy. You know what I'm saying? But back then the game wasn't built around bigs who could do what small guys do. Like if you was any bit, and then they based how they gon' give you your role based on how tall you are. So I could be 6'11", I could be 6'11", weigh the same as a straw. They still gonna put me down in that paint. So back then, Jonathan Bender wasn't getting that opportunity, and a small part of it is because he wasn't good enough. But at the same time, and it's only he ain't good enough because he ain't get the opportunity in the minutes to really like prove that he was or if he wasn't. And there is a time limit on being able to help a player grow his game. It's just that the Pacers teams was, built on contending in the playoffs so much they didn't have time to develop young players and the young players who did prove themselves, they still wasn't getting the opportunity like that. You know what I'm saying? They wanted hard-nosed players like to an extent. And not only hard-nosed players, but scorers who could, ISO the flow and take on one coverage or take on a double team and try to put up 40, 50 points a night, with almost just as many shots. Like I said, it was a different game back then. Niggas put up points with almost the same amount of shots, if not more shots taken to score X amount of points. You know what I'm saying? That's just what the game was. Like in the 2000s, you know what I'm saying? It was about that wing who could take it off the dribble and score on everybody, in so many words. And of course, like I said, the game today built around bigs who could do what guards do. But back then the game was built around guards who could shoulder a team's scoring burden, who could burden a team's, scoring duties. It was about that two guard or that three, or even some cases that one who could just put a game on his back. You know what I mean? So much so, they always get injured due to the fact, and they get no passes for missing games if they can still walk. Take Allen Iverson, for example. You know what I'm saying? Take every great player you remember from the 2000s who was great at scoring. Take any of the scoring machines from the 2000s. And yeah, it's 100% chance of injury in professional sports, in most professional sports, but it was almost like we gonna use like players were seen as cars that people would use for everything. Until that car break down, we gonna ride this bitch till we can't ride this bitch no more. And that's how, franchise players were seen. And even if they wasn't guards, if they were bigs, they was hit with the same responsibility. Regardless what you was good at, you better make sure You get down on that post and get your 30, 40 points the hard way. Like, they weren't allowed to, like, they were borderline never allowed to, like, you know what I'm saying, expand on a game, like, from 10 feet out, from 15 feet out. It was always 10 feet in, 10 feet in, 10 feet in. You know, you see a lot of that with Zion Williamson today. You know, yeah, his biggest strength is taking it to the rack. But if y'all already don't practice, if his teams don't practice, don't get to practice a lot due to COVID and like and due to COVID and other things, like road trips, like technicalities and all this, it's all kind of stuff getting in these dudes' way of being able to get in a good practice. You know what I'm saying? Like the average, you know, team in contention ain't really practicing more than once a week or twice a week, and especially in this pandemic, it's much harder to get in a good practice in the league, from what I hear. So if a Zion Williamson, all he doing is going to the basket, which is good. You know, somebody that strong should be going to the goal, but at the same time, if you don't expand on the rest of your game, which he proved that he more than capable of doing, so I don't have an issue with that. It's just a point of having that lock taken off you, because that was the same lock that Van Gundy put on Dwight Howard, which hampered his game, and he still wound up becoming a Hall of Famer through it all. It's weird, but but he like a proven anomaly. You know what I'm saying? Because you try to be the same way with Shaq now, but at the end of the day, Shaq was a grown-ass man and a 3-time champion before he went to Miami. And Stan ruined that team after they got a championship. They ain't out of act. Well, I don't know if he went and got the title with them, but I think that was Pat Riley. Yeah, Pat Riley got the ring with them. Yeah, I don't think it was Stan. It was Stan came after the fact. Yeah, Pat Riley coached that team. But anyway, the whole point is with Zion Williamson, if he don't get to operate on the rest of his game, he gonna be like, his game is gonna be hampered, and his jump shot the little jump shot that he, you know, put together is gonna break. You know what I'm saying? It's like, you know, NBA players are like guns. You know what I'm saying? With new skills they add to their arsenal is like adding a new part to the gun. You know what I'm saying? It's like adding this part to the gun to make it, you know, perform better, to make the gun perform better, whatever, whatnot. So, but unlike guns, people, you know, humans have a shelf life, and they only have so much of finite time to, you know, enhance their potential at a particular skill, you know, and some skills got higher ceilings than others, and some skills have carry endless potential. You know what I mean? I know when I think of endless potential, I think of Bo Jackson. When I think of endless potential, I think of LeBron James. You know what I'm saying? When I think of endless potential, I think of Tom Brady. You know, I think of Bill Russell. I think of some of the greatest winners in the history of team sports. I don't watch hockey, but I did come across Wayne Gretzky in my time. You know what I'm saying? But they all won, you know, by, you know, how you say that shit? They all won by playing to their strengths within the system that was given to them. Or even if it was a system that they built, you know, from a template of a coach that they really, like, learned a lot from. You know, I don't know, you know, I didn't say Michael Jordan because Michael Jordan was a scorer, and I saw that, you know, he was a ready-made NBA player out of the gate. He just didn't have the fame. And when he, you know, and of course, like, if you're a real Jordan fan, you would, like, look at his 87, 88 season. You know what I'm saying? He cut that was like to me, that was like the greatest individual season anybody could ever have. Like, that's not a point guard or a center. So, you know what I'm saying? With that being said, with that being said, like, you have to go to your strengths. Like Jordan at that time was scoring, and back then in that time in that season, that was like ahead of that was like a man beyond his years in a Bulls uniform. But at that time, basketball was like very low IQ ish. Like if you were tall, you got to play the paint. If you short, you was presumed to be smarter and faster than shoot better than everybody else. Oh, and if you were white, you were definitely like given a green light to shoot long jumpers. Yeah, man. And before a certain time in the NBA history, they ain't have a 3-point line. So, and that shit was relatively new to most players until like the late '90s and the 2000s. Oh, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, until like the late '90s and the 2000s, and even with that, it was teams that were performing from the perimeter, at a relatively high rate, and that was often categorized as performing at a astronomical level. Like you think about the Suns back then, even the Suns back then wasn't all that good before they got Steve Nash, but at the time when they had Starbury and them, they were still putting up 120, 130 a night. Well, not 130 a night, but they were still putting up over 108, 109 points a night. You understand what I'm saying? Nowadays 109 points is like that'll get you like in the mid, that'll rank you in the middle of the pack of the league. You know what I'm saying? Like the best teams average close to 120, or just the highest scoring teams average close to 120. You did what I'm saying? But yeah, but back to what not something I take lightly, and that's not something I'm going to back down from believing in, because at the end of the day, I mean, his scoring numbers still don't really prove how great he could have been putting the ball in a hole. And he was already great at that, around a basket. But come on, man, at the same time, just because he's so great around a basket don't mean he don't get to deserve to work on or practice, you know, perimeter shots. Obviously, I saw him. Well, I always used to see little short clips of him practicing or working on his, outside the paint jumpers and stuff like that, and sometimes 3-point jumpers. Now I get it. Every big man who feel as though they can make plays at the perimeter don't have that touch like they think they do, but all they want is that chance to prove that they either have that knack for making plays from outside the paint or not. How are they gonna ever scratch on how great they could become if all you limit them to is playing the paint on offense? I get it. Yeah, he still got to throw screens and box out and stuff like that. But at the same time, man, come on, man, look at Jokic. Nigga can't jump over a wet cheeseburger, but he making play after play from anywhere on the court, scoring, passing, setting a pick, setting a screen, taking a charge down low, whatever he got to do. whatever his fat ass could get on the court and do. You hear me? I respect that. I respect that player. You know what I'm saying? Nikola Jokic from the Nuggets. But back to Zion and Nikola Jokic. Well, now that I think about it, Nikola Jokic, a lot of Europeans and and quite a few American players, they done grasped on to the idea of like playing all five positions when they're young, and they start with point guard, and then they go from the 2 to the 3 to the 4 and to the 5. They get a chance to be able to play all positions before they're ready for the league. You see what I'm saying? Then it to the point where they get, comfortable being able to handle the ball. Like, put it like this. These days, like back in the day, players used to train, even players' training methods are different 20 years later nowadays than it was 20, 30 years before. You see what I'm saying? Now, I don't know how different exactly it is to the T because, I don't get enough information about how players work out. You know what I'm saying? I just go off what I remember seeing from certain players who, took fans behind the scenes of workouts and shit on short clips and videos and stuff like that. But here's the thing. That people work out, their workouts are different. Like today's workouts I hear are much more rigorous, and if you heard what I was speaking in verbatim of what Kevin Garnett said earlier, like you do those sprints across the court and stop on a dime and shoot a 3 every time, and then you know what I'm saying, like people didn't. I assume people 20 years ago didn't train to be what you see these players as today. It turns on a physical level. Yeah, it's a chance for more injury because the workouts are, far more rigorous than it was before. I think before it was rigorous, but it was like coaches being overbearing and overusing the players' physicality to get the best out of the team. And that's a fine line between a team being rusty and a team being run into the ground on a physical front. Like, and those workouts were hard, and medical technology wasn't as defined 20, 30 years ago as it is now. These days players bust the ACL, mess up the ACL, important ligaments in their body. It take them 2 years to get all the way right, but they recover in like 9 months. They make a majority recovery in like 9 months. You dig what I'm saying? Versus 20 years ago, somebody suffering a serious injury and they out for a long time. You see what I'm saying? So the training is different. And players these days are far more athletic than they was 20, 30 years ago. It's simple. Like I said, you can't go back in time and make sense of it. Talking about what a player would do to somebody in this era. It don't make sense. Then why did they end up playing already and these dudes playing now? You see what I'm saying? Like, for example, I often hear a lot, yeah, Jordan would average XYZ in the league because there's no hand checking. Which is true. I think he would average at least 35 with no hand checking. I think they would, yeah. He'll definitely average 35 with no hand checking. Bill averaged 35 now. And Kevin Garnett also highlighted about no defense. About how you can't hand check in this era. Like, the point about the no hand checking, I never looked at somebody as being a great defensive player if you could put hands on people. That's why I respect the defenders of this era. And certain defenders from um from the 2000s, certain defenders from the 2000s I respected. You know what I'm saying? Late 90s, early 2000s, I respected them because I respected the defenders from that era because a lot of them wasn't doing hand checking. You see what I'm saying? And I always say hand checking wasn't defense anyway. Just like a ball handler on offense, free arm and pushing people off to get them a jump shot. That ain't legal. So why would it be so if an offensive player couldn't put his hand on a defender to get him out the way to get a shot back then, why would it be legal for a defender to put his hand on the offensive player's hip and then when he shoots, there's a chance he could blow his fucking leg out because you fucked up his landing spot by pushing him by the hip, pushing him at the hip. Now I could see if you would, you know, put hand on their hip if they bigger than you, if they serve some kind of physical advantage over you. But to just be, let's say for example, a 6'2" guard well over 200 pounds, hand checking a 6'2", 180-pound point guard. Like, what the fuck? I get it why you need to hand check them because they faster than that two guard that's 6'6", over 200 pounds. But at the same time, it don't take for you to push a smaller guard, this far away from you, and he fails and he falls and messes up his lower extremities, like messes his leg up, his hip, his foot, whatever, anything. I don't consider that credible enough defense. Like, I hate when people talk about, oh man, the old days was better. They played defense. No, they didn't. They straight up fought people. You hear me? They clothesline a nigga going to the hole. That's prison ball. Like I said, people training was different back in the day compared to now. Nowadays, players lifting weights, actually lifting weights with their hands and feet, you hear me? And with their neck, Some of them, expand their training to like throughout various sports just to get that full body conditioning that they feel as though they so need. You hear me? Back then, man, niggas lifting cigarettes, niggas lifting cigars, niggas lifting beer cans. You hear me? Not every single player was built on trying to physically get better and to be able to last through the season back in the day. Everybody wasn't built for that. There was a lot of drugs infiltrating the NBA. The 80s almost fucked the NBA up. They almost forced the league was almost forced to close. You hear me? Put it like that. Before Michael Jordan blew up. You know what I'm saying? Shit, y'all better ask Michael Jordan. Y'all like to learn a lot of shit about Michael Jordan anyway. But go back to that, if y'all really Jordan fans, go back to that Last Dance documentary when he was talking about when he first got to the league and he described, the nature of the NBA back then, behind, like, a little bit behind the scenes and on the court. I'm gonna just leave it. I'm gonna just give you this. I'm gonna just leave you with this nugget that the Chicago Bulls was seen as a shit show, and they was almost forced to close operations in the NBA. Like, they was like that team nobody cared about. Like back then, before Michael Jordan's arrival, the Chicago Bulls was so bad they were giving away tickets to the game. Which still happens in today's game. Well, which still happened up to 2019 around the league with bad teams giving away tickets, but it was never like how the Bulls were giving up tickets, pre-Michael Jordan. Them dudes, that team was giving away tickets. Like, nobody was going to the games. They was like other events, game more clout than game more attention than the Chicago Bulls. You had an over the hill Reggie Theus. You had a George Gervin who was on his way out. I think Dr. J was on his way out. I think all them was on the same team, if I remember correctly. Some of the players I remember that I used to see them on rosters and stuff like that. But man, it's just the game 20, 30 years ago is so different from now. You literally make no sense talking about if a player whose game didn't fit the era would do in this era. Like, for example, people ain't gonna be ready for this. Allen Iverson could ball, but he'd be far more inefficient, and I'm just not sure how much healthier he would be in this era. And he'll be productive, but he will be far less efficient than a lack of efficiency he scoring efficiency that he put up throughout his career. Like, dude shot the ball like crazy for the amount of points he was getting. And and that's that to me, that's that wreck ball mentality. When nobody else on the team that good offensively, so they give you the rock and make everything happen. And that really was Allen Iverson and the Sixers. Yeah, part of it was him just having a ball in his hands all the time, plus the ball coming back to him late in the shot clock. You're not going to expect him to pass that, but at the same time, I mean, part of it is him getting the ball late, very late in the shot clock, and he's rushed to make a decision in terms of where to shoot. But dude's a good scorer. Dude's a great scorer, elite, one of the greatest scorers of all time, and one of the pound for pound greatest players ever. You hear me? From any position, any era. But you couldn't tell me that Iverson was one of the more efficient scorers of his era. Although his career is still Hall of Fame worthy. People act like you can't critique a player and still give him that respect as being an overall great player or overall one of the greatest players ever. You know, people ain't ready for that one. You know, people also ain't ready for the fact that Kevin Durant is the best player in the NBA, skill for skill, shot for shot, skill for skill. Now that don't mean he greater than LeBron. That just mean he plays better than LeBron. When healthy, on the court, getting it in. You hear me? Nah, LeBron's greater because he lasted longer physically than a lot of the people. Like, you know, he lasted longer physically, and people give him shit for that. But if I could say this though, I could copy and paste LeBron and put him in the early '80s NBA, and that dude would be the. You can even put him in the era with Bill Russell here. I always say that if LeBron could play it, his game was built for any and every era. Like, dude's a historian of the game. He understands the DNA, the on-court DNA of the league, past and present. Right now, the present DNA is you got to get you a player who could do everything, well, and do one thing great. He got to do one thing great and do everything else consistently well, or at least consistently good enough. He don't have to be great at everything else, but he got to be at least good at everything else. Like if you're a 3-point shooter and a dunker, I'm gonna need him to pull up for a couple of mid ranges ever so often. I'm gonna need him to run a couple of pick and rolls, pick and pops. I'm gonna need him to run a couple of pin downs and a couple of 1-4 plays, single doubles, zippers, backdoor screens. Yeah, I'm gonna need you to get the rest of your teammates involved in these type of action plays from time to time. But I still need you to be great at what you are great at. That's why we got you. We needed somebody to fill that void, and you gonna fill it, 'cause you naturally do that. You always draft I mean, But it's much easier to find a fit on teams nowadays compared to back in the day where, you know, we know you, like back then it was, we know you good at everything, but we need you to do this and only this. And we taking away playing time. We taking whatever we taking from you if you don't do it. We taking whatever we could take. So if you was a superstar player, nigga bench you in, at an inopportune time for a few minutes. And that might be valuable minutes your team needs you. But you got some coaches who just gonna be firm and hands down with their system and feel like, oh, my way or the highway. And that's how a lot of players don't end up living up to their full potential. You dig what I'm saying? And that's kind of messed up. Like, I feel like some of these players deserve their own team, like a Kelly Oubre, like a Kyle Kuzma, like a let me see, Zach LaVine. He got his own team, so you know. But those opportunities wasn't gonna come like that, like 20, 30 years ago. That shit wasn't happening like that. Like highly coveted rookies in the NBA wasn't even getting playing time like that. Like if you wasn't head and shoulders the best player in your draft class, you was not gonna get playing time. Not even on a bad team. That's the way it would have went back then from my point of view. Now I might be off about maybe a couple of details here and there, but for the large part, I remember rookies wasn't getting shine like that because they were still with that dumb shit. Oh, rookies don't get time. And I used to believe in that for a long time, but that was then. You know what I'm saying? The more proven veterans were getting all the playing time, even if the hot shot rookie was better than that sixth or seventh or eighth man on the bench. Like the politics of the game, that's one thing that still needs to change. Even though back then, way back when in Bill Russell days, it was far worse. And I still think that was probably the hardest career any superstar had to play through was Bill Russell, because you played at a time where America was completely against black man, like at being his own man and being his own individual. And Bill Russell was one of them people that was like, fuck all that, you hear me? I'm gonna be me and lead a positive protest into making things better for and helping America respect black people and help make things better for black people. He fought for civil rights. You know what I'm saying? So Bill Russell will always have my respect. The older I get, the more I start to respect him. The more I respect him and his game and what he stood for as in terms of black men, at a time that I cannot ever relate to. But man, a couple of seasons, the last few seasons helped me realize Bill Russell struggled a little bit, as a player way back in the day, even though I never, what I'm saying? He played so long ago, but it's a career that was at one point I felt like was like, I know it was a career that I was not aware of a lot, you know what I'm saying? And I used to just dismiss it as, different time in the NBA. They only had 8 teams. Man, I don't give a fuck. Because it wouldn't have been, oh, it's just a different league with 8 teams if Larry Bird played in the 60s NBA. People wouldn't have been like, oh, it was a different game. It was only 8 teams. They only said it because it's Bill Russell. And you got to think a lot of, and I wouldn't put it past the media that to have a few members still be alive and well and in the media even after witnessing Bill Russell's career. I wouldn't put it past the media to have people in it that was there through them times. You know what I'm saying? And like I say, that might be the hardest career of any superstar, the hardest championship in the last 20, 30 years at least had to be It had to be the 2020 NBA Finals. Come on, man. A global pandemic. I get it. I just said that's why I just bracketed off the last 30 years at last 30 years tops, last 20 years at the minimum. But and yeah, that was the hardest title to win. In the last 30 years, that was the hardest title to win to me because of the simple fact, there was a global pandemic in place and these players were completely isolated from their families. They were completely isolated from the world per se. You know what I'm saying? They couldn't go anywhere on their off time but around the bubble where they were, where they were chilling at, where they were chilling and working and playing at. You hear me? It's just an odd time, like at this day and age. You know what I'm saying? It's just odd at this day and age that you know that a lot of the struggles of then don't get recognized enough, and I don't do a good job highlighting it myself, but which I will start to do more of because I love the old NBA. You know, like I used to watch about the NBA when I was a teenager. I studied by watching tapes of and shows on TV about the NBA in the 80s, 70s. Not so much of the 60s. I used to read the encyclopedia more to cover to try to learn about the NBA from the 60s and prior to that, everything prior to that, which is, that's a lot to go into it, but it's not that hard. You hear me? It's funny that white people invented a game black people revolutionized. So much so people think we invented basketball. No, we should have, you know. And it's not that certain if James Naismith actually invented basketball. I know I'm all over the place, y'all, but bear with me. We talking about the sport of basketball, past and present, and my view of the NBA from that time to now. Due to the real 187, due to man, we still in here. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, I mean, it's a lot more I could dip into in terms of how different the leagues was, you know what I'm saying, from the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s, and today. But, you know, but keeping it to what KG said, like between now and 30 years ago, you know what I'm saying, between 90 and 2021, you hear me? The game has changed just from that time. And it was cooler back then to be, to have a mean streak. Um, yeah, to have a mean streak. You know, it was okay to be a little bit more disrespectful. It was okay to be overly physical when fouling a superstar player or fouling anybody going to the basket. Like, you better get ready to get punched, stabbed, mugged, jumped, ambushed, assaulted, borderline murdered. You know what I mean? Because that's what they would do. And back then, I used to think that shit was cool, but today, I think that shit is weak in today's era. You know what I'm saying? Because fuck, nobody should have to fear getting assaulted on playing a game. Now, I understand things happen, and in basketball, it is a contact sport. You can't really take physicality out of it, but you can definitely take malicious behavior out of it. Like, people with an intent to hurt somebody and not make a play. It's one thing if you hurt somebody trying to make a play on the ball. That's a little different from, you know, pretending to go for the ball just to get at somebody. I don't respect that. You hear me? And I don't respect that when I see that in basketball of any kind, from fucking from little league all the way to to the pros. I don't, I don't condone it. Put it that way. I don't condone it. I only see it being legal to me when it's applied where it's warranted, you know. But even sometimes the retaliation is bad, you know what I mean? Because that could be the tipping point to a whole lot of shit is it that don't need to go down. And in today's game, players are more conscious of how they carry themselves in terms of like throwing their physicality around. You got a few here and there that's going out trying to make bad plays on people. Like for example, it was early in this season I saw Trey Young and Grayson Allen get after it. It was the Hawks against the T-Wolves one game, and wait, no, it was the Hawks versus the Grizzlies. My bad, not the T-Wolves. And the Hawks was not sure if they was in Atlanta or I think they was in Memphis. I believe they was in Memphis in that game. This was like early November, between November and December. The Hawks had a game against the Grizzlies, and late in the game, somewhere in the middle of the game or late in the game, Trey Young and Grayson Allen get into it. Grayson Allen is somebody from Duke, is a two guard from Duke, white boy, two guard from Duke, about 6'4", 6'4", 200. You know what I mean? He's somebody who always had a problem with harnessing a temper, always having a temper tantrum for the littlest shit. And it's usually when reps make a foul call against him for doing something silly to an opponent, like tripping them. Yeah, usually it'd be about back then at Duke, he used to get in trouble for tripping people on the court on purpose. He was kind of like a Draymond Green. You know how Draymond Green, a few years ago during a run, he was kicking people. Well, Grayson Allen was tripping people. He had this bad habit of tripping people when he didn't get a rebound or if he felt like somebody got over on him. You know how players do. They get at each other with the gamesmanship. Now the gamesmanship is cool. Like you could make an attempt to pull down my shorts or tie my shoestrings together. You could do little shit like that. I don't mind that. Or untuck my jersey or some shit. Like you could do little shit like that. I ain't tripping. You hear me? That's gamesmanship. I'm not tripping about that. But anyway, so I ain't even finished the story, but and I think Trey Young at one play, I think it was toward the end of the game, he was dribbling the ball, and I see Grayson Allen trying to step on the back of his foot in the process. Now, he didn't get him. He didn't get Trey, but I thought that shit was left-handed as fuck. Like, I would never respect that kind of move in the NBA where somebody trying to step on somebody's shoe. Now, I get it. That's the game, but, man, if I'm in the NBA and I caught somebody trying to step on my foot and I know what I didn't do to deserve that, that's going to be a problem. But at the same time, I don't know if it'll be a problem I would like to address while cameras are rolling. But if it's something that did go down on the court, I would like to address it on the court. See, I'm the type of person that like to address something about something based on where we at. So, if something go down I don't like at a particular venue, I want to address it at that venue. You hear me? So, if somebody tried to intentionally end my career in the game, I'm going to have a word with them before we leave the building of where we played that game because we're going to have to have an understanding. You understand what I'm saying? And it's kind of like the same thing with just, going upon your expanding upon your creativity. Some things you just, like, you get tired of, you get so tired of letting it be known what you're not gonna tolerate till you just go on and show that you ain't gonna tolerate it. You hear me? And it ain't got nothing to do with being confrontational. It's just everybody don't deserve your energy. Like you're a good person. Stay that way. You hear me? So if you gotta stay away from people to if you gotta stay away from people to to enhance your creativity, then that's what you may have to do. You understand what I'm saying? But anyway, point is 3:20 a.m. and I'm still rocking with y'all. Mm. But yeah, 20, 30 years ago in the league, and now it's far different. Players are far more physical now. Players are faster with the ball in their hand, without the ball in their hand. Now that does, like I say, open the door for more injuries. Like, you know what I'm saying? Because like players these days are really running out their body, like literally. Like everybody, and then these dudes are young too, so they still be like the average rookie, the average young player still be growing into their body, and they get hurt more because they still growing into their body, and some of them be unfairly criticized as fragile. You know what's fucked up? A lot of team executives believe it too in their own way, and a lot of team executives don't know shit about the game. They just know about what would sell and what wouldn't. Like they familiar with product from elsewhere, and they be able to make that determination in that regard, in that kind of fashion, in those worlds. But a lot of them don't success. A lot of team executives they don't successfully make that transition to being able to like assess talent without fully, fully evaluating the talent through and through. You just going off a particular physical condition, whether it's a good one or not. You still looking like, for example, y'all see how John Wall is producing for the Rockets right now? Now, I want to show y'all something. You hear me? I want to show y'all something, and I hope, well, not even show y'all, but I want to tell y'all something. Since y'all can only hear me, you understand what I'm saying? Fuck. I want to tell y'all something. I'm not sure, but y'all know how John Wall, you know how John Wall was with the Wizards. You know, his game was like, his speed was like, it was his game predicated on speed, ball handling, timing, you know, and defense. So with that being said, right? Yeah, it's just a brief silence because I won't be able to get this point across and have my facts together on this particular thing about the NBA 9 and how players get hurt, being more physical these days than getting hurt by somebody at the hands of somebody assaulting them, going to the basket or whatnot. You know, and I respect, the technicality of an offense only to a certain extent, because at the end of the day, I'm a street baller. Like I'm a street baller, rec baller, church league, former church league player. Like, come on now. But anyway, Jonathan Hildred Wall Jr. Shout out to John Wall. I hate to do that to you. But in this case, you understand what I'm saying? Tell me why. Okay. Remember what I was talking about execs not being able to assess if a talent is good or bad based on based on what they assess about that player's physical condition. Remember what I was just saying a few minutes ago, right? Nah. All right. The dude's a career 19 point per game scorer, right? And I want to get this point across a little bit more. All right. So it was 18-19. He missed the rest of the season. He missed the rest of the 19 season and the whole 2020 season due to, left heel, Achilles, and infection after the Achilles surgery. So my man's been going through a lot these last 2 seasons. You see what I'm saying? But at that time, he was averaging 23 a game the season before. Then in that season when he went down, well, the first season where he went down and had a serious injury. Well, he had several serious injuries, but this one where he only played 41 games in the 18 season, he still made the All-Star game. He averaged 19. He averaged 19 and 9. This year he averaging, goddamn, he's still averaging 19. You know, at 19 and 6, because they got other people who can make plays too. You hear me? But my whole point is in this situation. Bro. At the time he went back, at the time he got hurt, he was shooting 42% from the floor. You hear me? He's shooting down there 45% from the floor. He's shooting down there 3% better than he shot before the injury. You understand what I'm saying? You know, I'm just saying, he's still an average 3-point shooter, but he working on it. And so 19 and 9 his whole career with the Wizards versus 19 and 6 with the Rockets this season. I'm still trying to figure out what part the Wizards part. I'm trying to figure out what part of the Wizards assessing John Wall did they think he was finished. Now I know it's all water under the bridge, and he happy with the Rockets now because he back down there with his one of his best friends and teammate DeMarcus Cousins. Yeah, them two work like peanut butter and jelly together. So that's part of the reason why he having a good time too, like in Houston. It started off a little rough when it, trying to get a former star out the door. But after the fact, I mean, he averaging 19, 6 and 3. Like, not too far from his usual stat line, which is like really 19 and 9. You hear me? With 4 rebounds. You understand what I'm saying? I mean, I don't know. But if you take and put John Wall in the 90s, he'll fit right in. But his career probably would have been ended. Again, I can't rewind and say, oh, put prime John Wall. Of course, put prime John Wall in 1991. He'll fuck some shit up. But at the same time, he'll easily be more defendable. Because, of course, he ain't the most polished perimeter shooter. And I never made that claim. And he'll career 32% 3-point shooter. So I'm not really like making a claim where, even though 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, even though this is currently his 6th season shooting over 30%. You hear me? 4th season shooting over 35% so far. You understand what I'm saying? He's actually above average. He's actually been above average. Given the attempts, yeah, he usually attempt 5 a game with the Rockets this season. So it's kind of like an anomaly compared. It's a career high in attempts, but it's amounted to his second most productive 3-point percentage from the field. So he's a better long-range shooter with the Rockets. Plus, he taking more of these shots, and he making about 2 of them a night. So I'm not sure where the Wizards thought he was done at. Maybe they was used to the slash and dash John Wall, the one, and he was playing that way with these injuries before they got worse. So imagine him being healthy and finally happy at the fact that he don't have to go to rehab. put it this way: Penny Hardaway. If Penny Hardaway played in this era, he was another guy he was another guard from back then that was severely injured. And no, I'm not comparing the two; they completely different from each other. But I'm just saying the whole thing is Penny could have played in this era too. If Russell Westbrook could have played in this era or any of them, yeah, Penny was definitely that nigga. And he was a one. Oh yeah. And he was a scoring point too. So he was like one of the few scoring point guards who was getting love back then for being him. And played with Shaq and down there in Orlando. Now before them finals, they was the talk of the league. You know, and I compare that to, well, I don't compare, but just that time of having a big man, little man combo, it's few and far between in the league these days. These days, your big man, little man combo is like the little man be 6'6", between 6'6" and 6'10". The big man will be 6'11" and taller. So, like if you remember the Pelicans of the late 2010s where they had Boogie, it was like 2016, like the 2017 Pelicans. They had Boogie and AD. Like none of them would be deemed a little guy in that situation. But these tandems are what I'm saying is these tandems are far more diverse and far more unique than the tandems of the past. Even though a few of the tandems of the past was I consider unstoppable. You know, but today's tandems, you know, they got more ways to score. Nah, the tandems of the past, like the famous tandems of the past in the NBA, the average superstar tandem could play great defense. They can get up for a game and play some great defense. But what beats a great defense? A better offense, right? Like you see it all the time in the NBA. Past and present, somebody put the pressure on the score and he wind up getting a crucial basket in the face of that pressure. It's a beautiful thing. But where the league at today, yeah, it could. I mean, every era could use some work, but in terms of skill and athleticism, this is a far more polished era of talent than any era before them. And of course, as things advance, as people, places, things, ideas, events, as time passes, all that evolves. Or at least that's the preeminent thought behind it is like, or the preeminent anticipation is that, things evolve over time. And a lot of players that's like mad about, they're not really mad at the players, but at least they shouldn't be, because a lot of they gripe come from fans, just disrespecting the game by ranking such and such player from another era over such and such player from a whole different era. Like, it don't make sense to me. Where I stand is where I stand. You understand what I'm saying? Like, nobody's opinion matters unless you're entertaining what I'm talking about. We could agree to disagree, but the disrespect just, you know, that can't be allowed when people are discussing greatness or discussing whatever they want to discuss within the confines of talking basketball. It's not always about a particular subject. Sometimes I could just bring up events that I know links itself to the current conversation at hand. It's called a perspective. It's just my perspective. Your perspective ain't meant to make sense to nobody. It ain't meant to make sense to nobody. But at the same time, you know, it don't control what somebody think about. Whatever it is, what it is. You know what I'm saying? But what can't be happening is the disrespecting of players just because somebody had a wild ass opinion about them. It is what it is. Usually the first thing we do is start dissing that player. Like, oh man, fuck out of here. He soft, he trash, he this, he that. We know that player not that bad, but we only saying it to like discourage the person talking about him. And I'm not backing down from that because that is an actual fact. I made this observation plenty of times. You know what I'm saying? Fuck anything physical, I would have to show you to prove it. That could be for another time. But at the same time, I understand people lie a lot, but but people gonna have to respect the fact that I don't lie. Period. You understand what I'm saying? I don't care what I lied about way back when. We talking about now. You hear me? And how these players are so much more skilled than the fucking 80s or 90s ever was outside of a few Hall of Famers. You hear me? Like Magic Johnson could play. Like I could sit back and with confidence and say Magic Johnson could play in today's league, but Ben Simmons could also play in the '80s NBA. Joel Embiid would dominate the '80s, would dominate the '70s, especially the '70s. Like from the '70s on down, Joel Embiid would kill it. Joel Embiid, matter of fact, any perimeter oriented big that got to play his style back then, he shine. Not in the NBA, but in professional basketball, period. Like, I get it. You know what I'm saying? But people got such a short-sighted view about basketball. And they don't even like basketball like that to be all woo-de-woo. But even if you love the game, people who love the game got the tendency to judge those who ain't as passionate as them about the game. Like, hold up. My passion will only go so far to prove, my passion will only go so far as to like stand on what I know about the game. It will never go on to try to like, I ain't gonna say never, but I'm not gonna be so quick to try to get on the court and prove that against nobody these days. Yes, indeed. I love kicking it with y'all about this. But it's just some things to know when talking about the game and discussing things and addressing what Kevin Garnett was saying. I basically went off this with no writing. Yeah, but this been your boy Duty the Real One, Duty Man, the Real 187. And it was fun kicking it with y'all on this episode of the Sports Order. You understand what I'm saying? Shout out to everybody who really fuck with the content. And because you fuck with me don't mean you fuck with the content. And I don't mind you being cool with me and not fucking with the content. It's cool. But if you're not gonna fuck with the content, I don't need your comment on nothing. And it's just like that, because if I'm not into what you're doing, I'm not gonna make no comments. Period. About that. So I want the same respect. Thank you. Please and thank you. But to everyone else, it's been love. You understand what I'm saying? I love kicking it with y'all and talking, speaking my mind about, any topic I bring to y'all, or just a topic I felt compelled to speak about. I come here, like I told y'all, I'm gonna do this more often, you know what I'm saying? But, the more we do this, the better we gonna get at it, you know what I'm saying? And I promise y'all to keep bringing that shit. As long as you let me know you want you want to hear that. You know what I'm saying? Just let me know, you know, that you want to hear that. You want to keep going, but I'm gonna keep going regardless. As a whole in totality, and furthering this brand. You understand what I'm saying? But yeah, until next time, world. I glove y'all very much, and I mask y'all to show love at all times. You hear me? Mask, gloves. Well, I try to pass a dry joke, but fuck, you know. Basically, stay safe, everybody. I holla.